These are individuals who carried out an act of terrorism. And they later tried to justify that act of terrorism by invoking the religion of Islam and their own deviant view of it. The world is not at war with Islam. The world is at war with individuals who, in the name of Islam, try to carry out acts of violence.
Why say one word? You could say a sentence. It's no secret the White House will go out of its way to avoid using term Islamic extremist. And now at least one news organization is on the same team. Executives at Al Jazeera Network, including Al Jazeera English, just sent this email to their employees, warning them not to use words like extremist, terrorist, or Islamists. The executive who wrote that email claiming writers and reporters need to manage their words carefully. But is that really the reason? Joining us right now is the author of A Battle for the Soul of Islam, founder and president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, Dr. Jasser. Dr. Jasser, is this organization being very tolerant and positive by avoiding those terms?
Oh, no, this isn't about tolerance, Brian. It's who is Al Jazeera? Al Jazeera is the main media arm for the Muslim Brotherhood movement. In Arabic, they're Harakat Islamiyya, or Islamic movements. So what they're trying to do through this censorship is their directors are trying to prevent the war of ideas from the Islamists controlling our Muslim community. And they're desperate. I mean, right now with a flag that has our scripture on it, with the pandemic of radical Islam from Boko Haram to Pakistan to Egypt, and the Muslim Brotherhood personnel of Al Jazeera are now running from Egypt, and they're running for cover, and the way to do that is to control the terminology. And by the way, it's not just Al Jazeera. BBC Arabic, with all its Brotherhood-type reporters, recently had the same type of directive, and they're consolidating, circling the wagons and their influence in, as you saw with Josh Ernst, and their influence on the Obama administration, etc. So they're trying to prevent Muslims like me from having a seat at the table. Okay, let's just go through some of the banned words. For example, extremist. Is there a problem using the word extremist? It says, do not use. Avoid characterizing people. Often their actions do the work for the viewer. Could write violent group if we're reporting on Boko Haram agreeing to negotiate with the government. In other words, reporting on the violent group that's in the news for non-violent reasons. Is that helping? No, I mean, you have to use those terms because what it does is it exposes to the world that there's an extremist element of the Islamists, and this deeper below that iceberg is a political, a theopolitical ideology that we have to confront, and they're running for cover. This is desperation, this attempt to control terms. All right, and now the terrorists. The problem this guy has with terrorists is one person's terrorist is another one's freedom fighter. Do you like that dissemination? Oh, my God. I mean, Brian, that summarizes why they have a problem with this. The Muslim Brotherhood and all these Islamic groupings don't want to be considered terrorists as pejoratives. They're freedom fighters. Well, they're not fighting for freedom. They're fighting for theocracy. And us Muslims that are fighting a jihad against jihad want to marginalize them, and we can only do it if we call them what they are. Dr. Jasser, you said something very profound in the break when we were just talking. You said that by not saying Islamic extremists, we are helping the Muslim Brotherhood, Boko Haram, Al-Qaeda everywhere, and ISIS, because wake a sleeping giant. Muslims like yourself who don't want to kill people because they don't agree with you will begin waking up. Absolutely. That's what they don't want, because once the majority of Muslims start saying, wait a minute, these guys are dominating what we're being called in the media and government, etc., we are not going to let them dominate who we are as Muslims and as patriotic American Muslims and what is not Islam. If you don't call it Islam, you let the Islamist movements and their theocracies all over the planet dominate who we are, and you won't wake up Muslims. You call them Islamists, and the rest of the Muslim community will have to wake up for a revolution or a jihad, as I call it, against jihad. Yeah, and those are Islamic extremists who are threatening to behead everyone they get a hold of that aren't on the ISIS/Al-Qaeda movement. Dr. Jasser, thanks so much. Thank you, Brian. All right, 10 minutes.